Today we will be discussing the next video in our becoming a data engineer. That is, we will be touching upon SQL. So, who is SQL for? SQL is for various sets of people. Of course, it is for developers, right? Because they are the ones who interact with this query language and they will do various developments. But it's also for data scientists. Who are data scientists? Now, data scientists are people who analyze data and use various techniques on it like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and really bring the data alive, right? And in terms of making value for businesses, for people, for humans, for computers, scientists are the ones who do that, and they use SQL for that. It's also used by accountants. Why would accountants use SQL? Now, I worked in finance teams before, and right from the CFO down, they want to have access to the data themselves. They want to see the numbers. They are the ones who certify the various accounting financial statements, for the Wall Street and elsewhere. So they want access. They need to do that, and for that they use SQL. And of course, it's also used by business professionals, marketing people, business people, BI people, who want to gain direct access and understand the data themselves. While, yeah, they get dashboards and reports, etc. But some of them are savvy enough to run SQL themselves and understand what numbers mean. So, yeah, it's used by a whole bunch of different people. So what is SQL? Let's get that down to the basics. So it's a structured query language, and it's a form of programming that's used to manage, the traditional relational databases and perform various operations on the data in them. So let's look at the syntax involved in SQL. First and foremost is a concept of a database table. A database contains, you know, one or many tables. Usually it's always going to be many tables. Each table has a name and a table has records. Records now would be like, say, I'm going to give you an example of a customer table, right? So, say a business has four customers. They only had four customers, right? So there will be customer A, customer B, customer C, customer D. Some information about them, maybe their first name, last name, their address, their phone number, and all of that information would be, those four records for those four customers would be in this table called customer. Most of the actions you perform on a database are done with SQL statements. So that's what helps you work with the data in the database. SQL words are not case sensitive, so a lowercase select is the same as uppercase select. And some database systems require a semicolon, at the end of each statement, so like to make it executable, so when you have a semicolon and then when you hit run, it knows that's the end of the statement and it'll execute. So say you want to select some data from a database table, when you have a semicolon at the end of it, it knows that's the end of it and it'll try to execute. So let's look at the most common statements that a database engineer, who's doing SQL would encounter. First is select. This is what extracts data. So you select something from a table. Second is update, where you want to make a change. Say a customer's phone number has changed, so you would use an update statement to make a change. What if that customer is no longer with you? You want to remove him from your list, so you would delete him. What if you have a new customer and you need to insert her into the database table? So you would use an insert statement. What if your having a new business and you want to create a whole brand new database or a new, some function. So you would use a command create database, alter database. So maybe you want to change the database some way, like some storage or some, aspect of it. Alter database is the command for that. Create table. So like I was talking to you about functionality, so you could create new tables. You can alter a table, like say now the customer table we talked about, you had their name, address, phone number. Now you also want to store their social security number. So you would alter a table and add a column. What if you no longer need to have that customer information at all, and you just need to drop it? So you can drop a table. Create index. This is a unique thing, new thing I'll introduce here. An index is something that lets you quickly find some data in that table. So it's a way to increase your performance. And that's usually like say you create an index on the name, customer name, right? So like say you had a lot of customers with the name David. You could quickly find all Davids in your David database table, customer, if you had an index on the column name. And then you can similarly drop an index where you don't need to have that performance speed for that particular records. So let's also touch upon another concept called big data. Big data systems use NoSQL. So now you say, wait, what is this? Right? We discussed SQL. Now you're saying there's NoSQL? So NoSQL systems, which is really like big data requires NoSQL, allows you to work with different data structures. And because they allow a dynamic schema for unstructured data, there's less need to pre-plan, pre-organize data. So all those tables, columns that we discussed suddenly are not important anymore when we start talking about NoSQL. It's a non-relational database, right? So unlike the SQL systems, which use relational databases generally, NoSQL is non-relational. So you can have different structures, not rows and columns like we talked about. So more flexibility. So with that, I would like to say, hey, that's all for today's lesson on SQL. Of course, it's a vast topic. I might get into more details on each aspect of it later.